Howdy, folks, and welcome to the show. My name's Cary Nightingale, and with me, as always, is my trusty sidekick, Kevin Nebrich. Kevo, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent, sir. How are you?
Just fine, thanks, and I hope you're excited, because today we're going to narrowly avoid starting a holy war, because we've decided to go on a crusade to see what the Christian contemporary genre has to offer for a couple of heathens like us. We each have a song picked out that we've rated and reviewed. Now, we recognize that this by no means gives us a true survey of a whole genre, but it's a start. Speaking of starting, Kev, I understand that your song is called Nobody. Why don't you tell us about it?
Nobody is a single released by the Christian rock band Casting Crowns in 2018. This song tells a tight 3-act narrative. Each act is delivered by a different vocalist, and both verses and the bridge work back to the chorus effectively for a call to action. This song received high marks across the board for composition. Pay special attention to the cadence with which the lyrics are written and delivered here because it's very effective. The singers in this song have very impressive vocal talent, and they pour a lot of feeling into their delivery. The supporting instrumentation is dialed back here to support the vocal delivery, and for good reason. It's setting a nice background for the melodic and rhythmic vocal delivery in the foreground, until we reach the end of a verse or the bridge for a well-timed dynamic change, and then it all comes together. There's also a lot of building and swelling throughout this song as we slowly crescendo into our final chorus, where all of our instrumentation and each of our singers, including a choir, come together for one last hurrah. These folks are good storytellers, and they're really selling this performance. I'm not buying what they're selling personally, but I do believe that they believe it, and that it means a great deal to them. The song Nobody by Casting Crowns received a tune score of 6.9 out of 10. Cary, why don't you give it a listen? Tell me what you think.
I'll be happy to give it a shot. Be back in a moment. And I'm back. Thanks so much for holding down the fort there, Kev. I have to say, I agree with your rating. I just want to draw attention to what I think is one of the more clever lines that I've seen or heard in quite a while. Moses had stage fright, and David brought a rock to a sword fight. I love it when we can get a little historical lesson in song. Yeah, but really good stuff, Kev. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Right on.
So that was Nobody by Casting Crowns, rated at a 6.9. Nice. The song that I found is called Fire in My Bones by SEU Worship. Fire in My Bones is a love song. The love is directed toward God rather than a fellow human. You can tell because the pronouns are capitalized on the lyric sheet. Also, the references to the Genesis creation myth, original sin and forgiveness thereof, and words not commonly found in typical love songs, especially redemption, revival, prophesy, and glory. I bet somebody yelled Bible bingo after that. The backing instrumentation would be appropriate to hip-hop or recent pop, particularly given the trap hi-hats throughout the song. Just remove the guitar that's in the right channel and replace it with a slightly altered version of the finger snaps from the left channel, and you've got it. The singer delivers a very strong performance and demonstrates a lot of control over pitch, giving a soaring feel to the message. One line gives me pause, however. There's no doubt in your mind. The word in is practically muted, but mind is stretched to 3 notes. I'm not a singer, but I can imagine a world in which in gets a full note in the melody and mind only gets 2. And that's a world I think we'd all like to visit. With references like from age to age and to the end of time, it's not surprising that the arrangement allows for a repeat of the bridge and multiple repeats of the chorus. But the longer the song lasts, the more it becomes about the song and the less about the message. If I were producing or remixing, I'd aim for a tight 3.5 minutes. As I understand it, Fire in My Bones is a Christian contemporary song. At least that's where I found it. It was about the dozenth tune that arose as I scanned, skipped, and shuffled my way through the Christian contemporary playlist on Spotify, and it was about the first one that actually sounded kind of interesting and unlike the others. But the message is pure worship. I wonder what proportion of Christian contemporary leans deeper into the history and mythology of the Bible, teaching the listener lessons for a life of service, usefulness, and purpose, or even just entertaining by retelling some of the wackier stories. As a bald man myself, I find a certain charm in the wrath and vengeance of Elisha and the two she-bears found in 2 Kings. At any rate, as a tune of pure worship, Fire in My Bones makes me feel nothing aside from appreciation for the uplifting nature of the melody, and maybe a little innovation in taking the risk of bringing a trap beat to CCM. I rated Fire in My Bones by SEU Worship at a 5.7 out of 10 on the tune score scale. Kev, I'd love for you to give it a listen and let me know what you think.
All right, let's do it. Okay, I'm back. Excellent breakdown, sir. I agree with everything. I did catch that there's no doubt in your mind. I think you're absolutely right about that line. Something about the delivery there seems off, but the performance is great. They did a good job.
Yep, it was a solid, professionally produced and performed track. It wasn't bad. I don't want anyone to think that the lowishness of the tune score that I rated it at means that it's bad. It really just means that it's sort of average as far as composition goes, maybe a little bit above average, and the message doesn't appeal to me. Again, I mentioned at the beginning that I'm a heathen.
Yeah, I agree. I think your tune score is spot on. Like, the performance is great, but I agree with your overall tune score.
So there you have it. That was Fire in My Bones by SEU Worship. That said, I think it's time for a short break. This one's brought to you by the all-new Chrysler Sabbath, now featuring an engine and other car-like elements. This is one Sabbath your mechanic won't mind working on. We'll be right back. Howdy, folks. Welcome back, and thanks so much for your patience.
Jesus Christ, Cary, what took you so long?
Sorry about that. My Sabbath broke down, but don't worry. My mechanic didn't mind one bit. It really is truth in advertising. Now, I think this is a great opportunity for us to talk at a little more length about Christian contemporary music. So first off, Kev, why don't we explain to the folks at home why we chose to explore Christian contemporary?
Well, I think it's important to explore other worldviews once in a while, especially those that you disagree with. Ignoring them won't make them go away. Dismissing opinions offhand doesn't make them any more or less valid. And you're not supporting something that you might disagree with just by taking a closer look at it. Exploring a world you're unfamiliar with is a good way to test your own long-held beliefs and ideas. And specifically with songwriting, I think there are valuable things to learn from any genre. What do you think, Cary?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that. And more to the point, we don't want to be hypocrites, because we recently did a show in which we covered near universally hated artists and discussed the importance of giving everybody a fair shake. But after that, we started to question whether there were any artists or genres that we had personally ignored, but probably deserved a fair shake. And we noticed Christian contemporary on the Google results for list of genres and decided to start this little crusade. And you're absolutely right. I'll take a good idea from anywhere. If I can learn a lesson as a songwriter, as a musician, I want to learn that lesson. There's nothing written in the book that says that I play guitar, so I have to play a certain way. If I can take some influence from somewhere else and create my own genre, which I probably kind of already had and had to do because of the limitations of my playing, then so be it. We'll let light shine out of darkness on that. How about this, Kev? I think I had a little bit of a preconceived notion, even though I had no experience now or really ever in listening to Christian contemporary. So what were you expecting out of the genre before listening to it?
Honestly, I was expecting very simplistic lyrics and dull vocal cadences, specifically vocal deliveries overall. What I got was anything but. How about you?
So the closest experience that I have to Christian or religious music is my long-held fandom of David Eugene Edwards, the frontman from 16 Horsepower and Woven Hand. He incorporates a lot of religious imagery in his lyrics. He explores the conflict or struggle of faith, and his music tends to have a lot of roots where Americana sound woven in. So I was sort of expecting a little bit more of that, but what we got in these two songs, very modern sounds, very clean production. I wasn't necessarily expecting that. I don't want to say I thought anything we got for this episode would be sloppy, but I was expecting something maybe a little more organic or natural sounding. But this was all very clean, very good. But something I did notice, maybe despite that clean production and strong writing, or maybe despite it, maybe because of it, these songs we listen to are pretty powerful at eliciting emotion. Kev, what makes these songs so powerful?
Well, I would argue that we have excellent lyric writing in at least one of the two songs we reviewed for this episode, and both have very strong performances, well-timed dynamic volume crescendos, and a catchy chorus. So there's a lot of things that we feel emotionally as listeners in these songs.
You mentioned vocal delivery. The performance was very strong in both of the songs we listened to. I think singing with feel and really believing what you're singing, that translates from the artist to the listener. So that contributes to the powerful nature. I would have to spend probably a little more time with more songs from the genre to try and analyze certain compositional elements. But I think one thing I noticed was in the harmony, certain chord changes like a major 1 to a major 4 and a minor 2 to a major 4. Those chord changes can help. Again, it's sort of uplifting. Context, I think, really matters too. You think about where songs like this are probably going to be played. It's not a dark, dingy, brooding bar room. It's most likely a very large hall with many thousands, maybe many hundreds, of fellow believers. And you can draw upon that energy of your fellow audience members, and that can help them feel more powerful. What do you think, Kev?
Very much agreed. And I think you stumbled across something there that we've run into, at least in the last episode, maybe in the last couple. But one of the things that really stood out to us, one of those words that kept coming up was insincerity. So when your audience feels that you don't believe what you're singing, it's going to negatively affect how they feel about your song and your songwriting. So it's great that, we stumbled across that sincerity. When people believe that you feel what you're singing, it's going to really affect how they feel about your song.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's the first big lesson that an aspiring songwriter could take away from this is put yourself in your song. I know we've talked about it before, but I don't think it can ever be overstated. That concept of living your music as much as you can. Now, sometimes there's a case for writing the song from a very different perspective, but not every actor loves the role that they're playing or the person that they're playing. It was probably really easy for Daniel Day-Lewis to love the role of Abraham Lincoln. But there's probably a lot less that he identified with about Bill the Butcher, because Bill was kind of a jerk. Abraham Lincoln was less of a jerk. But either way, he was able to play those roles with conviction. What other lessons, Kev, do you think that aspiring songwriters can take away from this sort of exploration?
Well, I think the big takeaway for me, if you're a songwriter and you're struggling with how to move your listeners emotionally, you could learn a thing or two from Christian rock songwriters. I would argue that that's basically their job. Any big takeaways on your end?
Well, I think it's always obvious that you need to know your audience. But I think the less obvious takeaway is know your context or arena as well. Who's going to be listening and when and where? Because if it's in a church, if it's in a small church versus a mega church, that could have an impact. If you're making something for the radio and you think most people are probably going to be listening to it in the car while they're driving, well, you might want to tone it down just a little bit and save the energy for the live performance because you don't want anyone to get into a car wreck. As always, we invite and encourage you to give a listen to the tracks we reviewed today. They're on our Tune Scored Tracks playlist on our YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel and leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of our scores and critiques. If you're an up-and-coming songwriter, that's also a great place to recommend one of your songs for a tune score and some good old-fashioned honest feedback. We'd love to hear from you. We've had a lot of fun today, and we hope you did too. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay sound.